It's not that we haven't tried. It's a little bit harder, you know, to find those talented individuals. And mind you, like I mentioned before, we're competing with the other school districts in this area for that same Hispanic talent. But the time has come for us at Lake Worth ISD to foster and grow our own talent. And that's what this Hispanic Leadership Initiative will do. It is going to help our families. You know, a lot of moms and dads grow into school board member positions, or PTO presidents or booster club presidents. And it's going to help also give the staff and the teachers and anyone that wants to grow their career an avenue or a path where they have a support system that's going to help them grow into a bigger and greater role. Again, I invite you all to, if you have any desire to learn more about our Education Foundation, our Open Enrollment Initiative, or the Hispanic Leadership Initiative, I mean, please feel free to let me know or contact me, and I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all today.
Any questions about Lake Worth? Nobody has kids, right? Okay.
¿Usted vive en Lake Worth? Muy bien. Thank you again. Thank you very much.
Lake Worth. All right. Our next speaker is wearing two hats. You know, in Fort Worth. But you don't see the hats, but he has two hats. One hat is he's a state representative for Fort Worth and this part area, but it's Arlington, yeah. State representative, it's House District 101. That represents Arlington. He's also wearing the hat. He's Wendy Davis's campaign manager. So he has two hats today. His name is Chris Turner. He grew up here in this area. He served 2 terms in the Texas House. He served as the chair of the Texas House Democratic Caucus. He's a member of the Texas House Committee on Insurance, the House Committee on Environmental Regulation, and he's running Wendy Davis' campaign for governor. Let's give a big hand, Chris Turner.
Well, good morning, Domingo. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to be with you today. It's great to see so many people out early on a Saturday morning to talk about issues, talk about politics and what's going on in the community. So it's my privilege to be here. And Representative-elect Romero, thank you for having me in your district, in the heart of District 90. And I very much look forward to working with Ramon in Austin here in a few months when we convene the legislative session. As Domingo said, I am here wearing 2 hats. I think when I first was invited and wanted to come, I was only going to come here with 1 hat, and that was a state representative in District 101. Since then, I've added a role as Wendy Davis's campaign manager. And so I will talk about both. I'll talk about a little bit about my state representative role first, and then talk to you for a few minutes about the campaign. So as I was thinking about what I would say today in regards to the legislature, I thought that, you know, one approach would be I could talk about the, 1,200 or so bills that we passed into law in the last legislative session, and the several thousand more that will probably be considered in the next legislature. I thought maybe you wouldn't want to hear that much detail, though. So I thought what I would do is tell you a little bit about my district and some of the issues that we are focusing on in our district, in the community, and then also ways we think we can impact them in Austin, because a lot of these issues are not unique to District 101. But the district I have the privilege of representing includes much of East Arlington, Southeast Arlington, and the Tarrant County portion of Grand Prairie, which is where my wife Lisa and I live. And I have the privilege to represent one of the most diverse districts in the state. Roughly speaking, our district is about 30% Latino, 30% African American, 30% Anglo, and about 10% Asian. We have a growing Asian American population in our district. And so frankly, it's a lot of fun to represent a district so diverse with so many different backgrounds and viewpoints. Our district has a number of challenges that have gone unaddressed for far too long. Some of them are local issues. Some of them are issues that intersect local, state, and federal governments. And others are issues that just, everyone needs to help address. So earlier this year, working with people that have given us good advice in the district, working with my staff, we zeroed in on 4 issues that we really think we need to address long-term for the people in Arlington and Grand Prairie. And they are not in order of importance, but they're all equally important. One is healthcare, lack of access and affordability to healthcare. Number 2 is transportation. Arlington is the largest city in the country that has no mass transit. We do have a 1 bus route now that runs from UT Arlington up to Centerport. And so technically we have public transportation on that 1 bus route. But let's be real, it's not mass transit. And it's not something that is sufficient for what the city the size of Arlington needs. And Grand Prairie doesn't have any either. Number 3 is payday lending. And this is an issue that affects all of our communities. But just as across the state, there's been a proliferation of payday lenders, auto title lenders in Arlington and Grand Prairie over the last several years. And number 4 is jobs and the economy. And we need to make sure that people have access to good jobs, and we create good jobs in our district, and we emphasize economic development in a responsible way. And so what we've decided to do is in late May, we held our first District 101 Day, where we had about 100 people, constituents of our district, come together, and we laid out information on all of these different issues. And then we broke up with the help of a facilitator into working groups to talk about what kind of community-based solutions could we arrive at to begin making a difference on these issues. Some of these solutions are, kind of 10,000-foot level solutions. For example, on healthcare, we know that if the Texas legislature agreed to expand Medicaid and draw down the $100 billion from the federal government that belongs to Texas taxpayers to expand Medicaid, we would insure across Texas 1 million to 1.5 million people just like that. So, and that's a priority to do that. But 2, what can we do at the local level? What are some things we can do in terms of school-based clinics? Making sure that people have access to primary care physicians and aren't having to rely on the emergency room for primary care treatment. What are some things we can do to keep kids healthy in terms of immunizations, in terms of basic dental care, which can of course lead to greater health problems overall. So we're trying to look at the whole spectrum of issues within each of these major issue categories and see what ways we can work to create change by fostering partnerships at the community level. And so we had a very productive day in May, and people reported out a lot of different ideas and solutions. And from that, we are creating task forces, District 101 task forces on each of these issues: healthcare, transportation, payday lending, and the economy. And those groups are going to begin meeting here in a few weeks and into the fall. And that's going to help inform how we tackle some of these approaches, tackle some of these issues at the local level, and also things that I can work on when the legislative session convenes in Austin in January. What's important to note is that all of these issues are very interrelated. And if, for example, if you don't have a job and you can't afford to have your own personal vehicle, your own car in Arlington, and you would rely on public transportation if you live somewhere else, but we don't have public transportation, so it's very hard for you to get to a job or a job interview. It's hard to get to school if you're trying to go back to school, whether it's to TCC or UT Arlington or somewhere else. If you are underserved in terms of health care, one of the biggest factors on transportation, and the North Central Texas College did a survey of this. If we had public transportation in the eastern part of Tarrant County, what would you use it for? Number 1 was health care. I would take it and go to the doctor. And so when we talk about a medically underserved population, if they don't have a way of getting to the doctor, to the hospital, to the dentist, then it only worsens the health care challenges that we have. And with payday lending, the connection is obvious to all the above. If you don't have a job or have a job that doesn't pay enough to support you and your family, that makes those are the individuals that payday lenders target, and an auto title loan lenders target. Hey, just come on in, we'll give you an advance and we'll give you this loan, and you don't have to pay it back right away. Just pay a little bit each month or every 2 weeks. And that's how people get sucked into the cycle of debt that is so hard to get out of, where people are paying 400%, the equivalent of an annual percentage rate of 400% and more. And so all of these problems are interrelated. And as I told my constituents back in May, we're not going to solve all these problems in Austin. Even if I served in a legislative body that would vote for every bill I proposed, and I knew it could be signed into law, we won't solve every problem in Austin, and every problem won't be solved in Washington, D.C. We've got to work constructively across all levels of government, and change has to start at home. And for public transportation in particular, that if we are going to change the fact that Arlington is the largest city in the country without mass transit, it is going to have to take the people of Arlington, not just my district, all over the city, saying this is a priority for us, and the time to act is now, and making leaders at the city, state, and federal level understand that and support that initiative. So those are some of the things we're working on in our district, and I wanted to summarize that to kind of show you where my priorities are in terms of working for our district, and in addition to all the other things we focus on in the legislature that affect the entire state. And on that, I want to recognize my district director, Devin Allen, who is with me today. Devin has done a great job, and she's organizing all these task forces. So if anybody here is in Arlington or Grand Prairie and would like to participate, I hope you'll see one of us when this is over, so we can get you plugged in. And also, as a segue into talking about the Wendy Davis campaign, I'd like to recognize Rebecca Acuna, who's with me today from Wendy's campaign. And I will tell you that back in May, when I was doing District 101 Day, last thing I thought I'd be doing today is standing before you as Wendy Davis's campaign manager. I had long thought my campaign management days were over, but here I am. But when Wendy asked me to take on her leadership of her campaign in early June, I had to say yes. It is critical, it is imperative that we elect Wendy Davis governor of Texas, and I will do whatever it takes I can to elect her. I know all of you will too. And the choice in this race is pretty simple, and it's a pretty clear contrast. There's one candidate, Wendy Davis, who will wake up every day and fight for all hardworking Texas families, and it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, where you live, how much money you have. Wendy's going to fight for all Texas families. The other candidate, Greg Abbott, has proven time and time again he is an insider who works for other insiders and against hardworking Texas families. And the choice is clear, and we need your help to make sure the voters understand that choice when they go to the polls, and make sure voters who maybe don't vote typically in a non-presidential election year understand how important this is and get to the polls in November. Let me just talk about a couple of issues real quick, and I'll summarize the quick differences. On education, we just heard a great presentation on public education. Congratulations on the incredible work you're doing in Lake Worth ISD. Wendy Davis, as everyone here knows, she's the state senator, of course, for this area, has been a tireless advocate for our public schools. Her first filibuster in 2011 was against the $5.4 billion in education cuts that the legislature passed. Greg Abbott, he's in court right now defending those $5.4 billion in cuts. He's fighting the 600 school districts, including, as I understand, Lake Worth ISD, 600 school districts from across the state who are fighting to say these cuts are unconstitutional and they're hurting our children, and he's fighting them in court defending those cuts. That's number one. Number two, higher education. Wendy Davis supports the DREAM Act. Greg Abbott says the DREAM Act is flawed. And I don't know what part of it he thinks is flawed by giving opportunity to people who have worked hard and earned the right and to have a place in our higher education system and earn the right to have the opportunity in our economy, but he says it's flawed. Wendy Davis supports it. Number 3, equal pay. Wendy Davis and Representative Synfronia Thompson passed the bill to guarantee that the Texas Lilly Ledbetter Act to guarantee that women would be able to have pay equal to what men make in the state of Texas and have recourse if they did not. Rick Perry, as we know, vetoed it. What would Greg Abbott do? He said he would do the exact same thing as Governor Perry. He will veto Texas equal pay if it reaches his desk. Wendy Davis will sign it as soon as it hits her desk. And on equal pay, this is telling, because after Abbott said he would veto it, we learned through the news media that Abbott pays women in his office, on average, several $1,000s less per year than he pays men in the exact same positions. But it doesn't stop there. He also pays African Americans and Hispanics less, on average, in the same positions as he pays Anglo counterparts. And there's a clear contrast on that issue. And so, whether it's public education, whether it's equal pay, whether it's payday lending, where Wendy Davis has been the leader in this state in fighting to hold predatory lenders accountable, starting from when she was on the city council here to her work in the Senate and to this campaign for governor, to Greg Abbott, who has taken $300,000 in contributions from the payday lending industry, and he is the one who offered the opinion that opened this gaping loophole for them to do whatever they want in terms of charging unprecedented fees and interest rates. The difference is clear. Wendy Davis is fighting for all hardworking Texas families. Greg Abbott's an insider who's looking out for his insider buddies, and he's not looking out for us. So we need your help in driving that message, and we need your help in getting people out to the polls. There were, in 2012, 1.2 million Texans who voted for President Obama, who did not vote at all in 2010. Now, in 2010, Governor Perry won his election over Bill White by 630,000 votes. So think about that. If just half the people, a little over half the people who voted for President Obama in 2012 but didn't vote in 2010 had voted, Rick Perry would have lost that election in an absolutely horrible election year for every Democrat in the state. I lost my race in 2010, as did 20 other Democrats in the state house. That just goes, and 2014 is not going to be 2010, let me tell you. It just goes to show the power of the electorate out there if people show up to vote. And our campaign is committed to doing everything we can to get people out to vote, starting in early voting and through Election Day. But we need your help to spread the word and to make it happen. So thank you very much for having me this morning. I'd be happy to, if I have time, to answer any questions. Sure. Thank you, Domingo. Domingo said that I want to tell you the results of a public poll that came out yesterday, the Rasmussen survey, which typically is a Republican-skewed poll. It's a national polling firm, and typically the results skew towards Republicans. But what they showed, the poll they released yesterday, is that the gap in this race has narrowed. Their previous polling in March showed Abbott with a 12-point lead over Wendy. The poll they released yesterday showed that lead has shrunk to 8 points. It is a 48-40 race, and it shows that we're closing the gap. And whether whether it's a variety of things that people are starting to pay more attention, Democrats are kind of saying, hey, they've got an exciting race going on here. There's a variety of things that probably explain why that is. But we're not surprised by it because we know we have momentum in this race. And over the course of the summer, Wendy has been barnstorming the state, holding Abbott accountable for his actions. And one issue I didn't mention, I think that has gotten a lot of attention here over the last month, is after the terrible tragedy in West Texas last year, the town of West, where the fertilizer plant exploded, killing 15 people, Abbott started receiving contributions from the Koch brothers all of a sudden. And and it turns out, Koch Industries has a fertilizer division, a facility in Texas. Then in May of this year, Abbott rules as Attorney General that the state will no longer make public the locations of dangerous chemicals. That information has been made available to the public for years, since 1980s, when President Reagan signed a law saying the public had a right to know. And Greg Abbott has issued an opinion restricting access to that information. Why? To protect his insider friends like the Koch brothers. And then he made matters worse for himself by saying that, well, Texans, people know where these things are. You just drive around and ask people if they have any hazardous chemicals stored places. And of course, the news media had a field day with that. But increasingly, over the course of the last several weeks, our campaign has worked hard to drive this narrative and show Abbott for who he really is, someone who's looking out for his insiders, his donors, at the expense of average Texans. I think that's what that poll that shows that gap narrowing indicates.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Morning, everybody. I'm David Miranda. My question is, when did Davis come to visit us on this meeting?
What you would come to?
When did Davis come to talk to us or explain to her program about all state to us on this meeting, this kind of meeting?
Well, I can tell you that Wendy is barnstorming the state right now. She spent the last 2 days in the Rio Grande Valley. She's been in McAllen and Brownsville and Harlingen. The last couple days she was in Laredo this morning. In fact, she's in a restaurant just like this one right now, having a meeting with some elected officials before she holds a press conference. Wendy's out every day on the campaign trail. I will tell you that Wendy is obviously best known here in Fort Worth. This is her. She's been a city council member here. She's been a state senator here for 6 years representing this area. So, in all honesty, from her very limited time on, the big state to cover 254 counties, we do a lot of work in the general DFW Metroplex in terms of getting her out around the state, so people who haven't met her are able to meet her. That's certainly a priority because we know that people in Fort Worth certainly do have a much greater awareness of her. But that said, she's going to be campaigning all across the DFW Metroplex a lot, including right here in Tarrant County. And we'd be happy to, obviously consider any invitation. We have a lot of competing priorities.
Chris, you bring up the valley. There's some cities down in the valley that now their municipal elections are going to take place in November. How do you feel that's going to help Wendy and other candidates on the ticket? And what exactly are you telling those folks that have traditionally voted more in the primaries than in November?
Well, it's a great question, and you're absolutely right. There are a number of municipalities and school districts that have moved their elections from May to November in South Texas. And my general sense of that is helpful. In general, higher turnout is going to benefit Democratic candidates and is going to benefit Wendy Davis. We have to work to earn those votes. There's nothing to be taken for granted there. But the fact that people will be motivated to turn out to elect their mayor or city council member or school board trustee helps underscore the importance of turning out to vote. And you're absolutely right about the primary. And in many areas of the state where the Democratic primary is the only thing that matters because the outcome of the general election is a foregone conclusion, a lot of times people will turn out to vote in the primary but not turn out to vote in November. And that's one of the key things we have to change across the state is the November election is crucially important. But in fairness to those voters, a lot of times in the past they haven't felt like their vote mattered in November because there weren't competitive races. If the local races were already decided and they didn't think the statewide races had an opportunity to win, you can't blame people. We got to show voters this race is close. They can make a difference.